Have you ever felt the room shift when you walk in, like people are watching you, but not always with kindness? That tension, that attention, that mix of admiration and resistance. It's not in your head. It's real. And it's because you were never meant to blend in. You were chosen. You carry something rare, an energy, a calling, a presence that others can feel even before you speak. And trust me, they feel it. Some are drawn to it, uplifted by it. Others, intimidated, unsettled, even afraid. But here's the truth. Their reactions have nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with your power. This message is for those who felt misunderstood, underestimated, or even targeted for no reason other than being different. You're not too much. You're not imagining it. You're awakening something in the world around you, and it shows. In this breakdown, we're going deep into 8 undeniable signs that reveal why they're afraid of you, and why that fear is actually proof that you're walking in your purpose. So if you've ever felt the pressure of being too intense, too wise, or too real, this is your confirmation. Don't just watch. Be part of the journey. Hit subscribe now and step into your purpose. The best is yet to come. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to stand out and shake the ground while doing it. There is an unspoken tension that arises when presence alone shifts the atmosphere, when the essence of one person seems to stir something dormant in others. It starts subtly, a shift in tone, a borrowed phrase, a mirrored posture. Those who sense this quiet gravity may unconsciously begin to reflect it, like water catching the hue of the sky, without knowing it has changed. A manner of speaking, once unique, begins to echo in nearby voices. An approach to handling difficulty is adopted by others as if it had always been their own. The origin is rarely acknowledged, but the influence is undeniable. This phenomenon is not flattery in its purest form, but a silent concession, a nod to the weight carried in one's walk, the conviction behind each decision. The emulation may feel invasive at times, like footprints pressed too closely behind on a path not meant to be shared. Yet, it is also a mirror of impact, a reflection of the unseen ripples cast simply by being. Instead of recoiling, one can lean into this awareness with steadiness, understanding that the mark left is not diminished by imitation. When authenticity is lived without performance, it resonates, and that resonance often becomes a template for those still finding their voice. To lead without seeking recognition is to truly lead, and those who follow, whether in silence or mimicry, do so because something within them recognizes what is rare. A quiet signal of one's inner momentum is how often others feel the need to reshape that momentum with their own words. Advice pours in unasked, not as random commentary, but as a subtle form of control, disguised as care. This urge to guide, correct, or help is less about knowledge and more about an instinctive reaction to something they sense but can't quite name, a force, a vision, a rising current. They may not fully grasp where the path leads, but they feel the gravity of its direction and try to fasten their own compass to it. Conversations start to bend towards suggestion, boundaries blur as intentions mix with projection. A neighbor nudges, a friend insists, a stranger volunteers a roadmap you never requested. These moments aren't random. They are a kind of gravitational pull, a sign that the trajectory being followed feels extraordinary to those watching from the edge. Though the constant stream of opinions may feel like a weight, its presence is a reflection of perceived importance. What looks like interference is often a mask for fascination. The challenge is not to absorb every voice, but to sharpen the ear for what rings true. Recognize the pattern. Unsolicited input flows toward those whose path stirs curiosity, hope, or envy. Let the noise remind you of your resonance. Let it validate the quiet power that invites so many to try and shape a journey they don't fully understand. There's a particular kind of silence that follows someone who carries truth without dilution, an invisible weight that alters the room before a word is even spoken. This quiet pressure unsettles those nearby, not through aggression or force, but through the rawness of what it reveals. Responses shift subtly, a missed step in conversation, a hand that can't stay still, a gaze that darts away before connection can deepen. What seems like awkwardness is often the body's way of reacting to something it can't quite rationalize, a presence that stirs what's buried and ignored. In ordinary moments, this tension surfaces unexpectedly. A conversation becomes stilted, laughter feels strained, or a tone suddenly turns too formal, too rehearsed. The shift is instinctive, not calculated. Even long, familiar faces can become guarded when met with unwavering clarity. It's not fear of harm, it's the disorientation that comes from standing too close to someone who disrupts illusions just by being. The discomfort is rarely verbalized, yet it speaks volumes. It testifies to a rare kind of resonance, one that touches nerves rather than merely ears. There's no need to shrink or soften to soothe their unease. If anything, it confirms the potency of what is carried, something that asks others to look inward whether they intend to or not. What rattles them is not you, but what awakens within them in your presence. Let that be permission to stand even firmer in your truth, knowing that the reaction you provoke is a measure of the change you bring. Don't just watch, be part of the journey. Hit subscribe now and step into your purpose. The best is yet to come. Even my close friend, someone I trusted, one who shared my bread, has turned against me. Psalm 41:9. Sometimes the sharpest wounds don't come from strangers. They come from the ones who once said grace with you at the table. Betrayal doesn't always roar through the door. More often, it walks in soft, smiling, and familiar. That's what makes it sting so deep. It's the friend who once cheered the loudest when you were winning, now watching in silence, secretly hoping you'll fall. It's the one who once helped build you up, now pulling bricks from the foundation when they think you aren't looking. That's how the enemy works. He doesn't always come dressed in red with a pitchfork. Sometimes he hides in the ones you loved. And when God begins to elevate you, when the vision gets clearer and your steps get bolder, that's when the shift happens. The crowd around you may still look the same, but the atmosphere changes. That laugh they once shared with you now carries a strange tone. That encouragement you used to lean on starts sounding more like critique. What you once called loyal becomes lukewarm. Support turns into silence. Some will even try to stand in your way while pretending they're still standing with you. And make no mistake, this shift isn't your fault. It's not about what you did wrong. It's about what your growth reveals. Because when your purpose starts to shine too bright, it exposes what others tried to keep hidden in the shadows. Insecurity, comparison, fear. They see you moving forward, and instead of being inspired, they feel threatened. They see doors opening for you, and instead of clapping, they start questioning why theirs remains shut. And the hard part, some of them truly loved you, but their love couldn't stretch to fit the version of you that refuses to shrink. But don't you dare lower your light to make others more comfortable in the dark. This is the season for discernment, for blessing people from a distance, for recognizing that not everyone who started with you is equipped to finish with you. Let them walk, let them whisper, let them wrestle with their own reflection. Your calling doesn't shrink just because someone else chose not to grow. You've got a race to run, a crown to carry, and a purpose too heavy for shallow hands to hold. Keep going, because what they meant for harm, God's already turning it for your good. This reversal is not born from anything broken within the path itself, but from how brightly it now stands against others' dimming comfort zones. In everyday rhythms, the disruption may feel subtle, a project quietly compromised, conversations laced with passive defiance, gestures once rooted in trust, now dipped in comparison. Bonds that seemed unshakable begin to strain, not because of any wrongdoing, but because growth creates contrast, and contrast reveals tension. Those closest may interpret rising strength as a threat rather than a triumph. Their discontent has little to do with faults and everything to do with unspoken fears, the dread of being left behind, unseen, or irrelevant. This reaction, painful as it is, marks a turning point. Not all who began the story are meant to follow it to the end. The discomfort they express is simply the echo of a transformation they can't digest. Rather than internalize their behavior, let it affirm the power of direction and momentum. Every act of subtle opposition is confirmation. Something about this journey is powerful enough to provoke resistance. Let that be fuel. Let it deepen resolve. What collapses under pressure was never built to withstand the altitude that lies ahead. Influence reveals itself not only through the actions of a leader, but also in how often others look for a signal to act, think, or feel. There's a quiet dependency that grows around those whose inner compass feels unshakable. People begin to lean toward their presence, as if it offers stability the world denies them. This isn't just about asking for advice. It's about chasing the affirmation of someone whose clarity makes their own uncertainties feel more manageable. When direction is sought repeatedly, it becomes clear that the voice being consulted carries more than casual weight. It becomes a kind of anchor. This can be seen in small, repeated moments. Decisions held in pause until your reaction is known. Ideas shaped around your feedback. Even emotions adjusted in response to your expressions. Not because of control, but because your presence, whether you intend it or not, carries the tone of quiet certainty. That magnetism draws people toward your perception, hoping it will reflect something steady in their own chaos. Whether it's a subtle glance before a risk is taken, or a conversation that circles back to hear your final word, their search for your nod is less about approval and more about internal reassurance. The paradox, however, is that this role can become both empowering and exhausting. To be looked to constantly can feel like both a compliment and a responsibility. It becomes essential to listen for the balance point, where care for others meets care for self. Being a reference point does not mean being a repository for everyone's doubt. Let this dynamic affirm the impact of your essence, while guarding your energy with discernment. Share your insight generously, but never at the expense of your own inner stillness. That, too, is part of the wisdom they seek. How to be unshaken in a world that constantly reaches for more. Don't just watch, be part of the journey. Hit subscribe now and step into your purpose. The best is yet to come. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. Just like a lantern lit in a pitch-black forest, those who carry divine purpose can't help but be noticed. They don't need to announce their arrival. The atmosphere shifts naturally. That light pulls attention, and just like bugs swarm a flame, the curious, the insecure, and the threatened will start to gather close. But not all who gather come to admire. Some come to dissect, to predict, to possess. See, when God marks you, the world feels it, even those who can't explain it. You become a moving target, not because you've done something wrong, but because your right threatens what's stagnant around you. When someone moves with purpose, it shakes loose everything aimless nearby. Suddenly, people who never noticed your silence now study every word you speak. Every decision you make becomes their obsession, and they act like they've seen the end of your story before you've even turned the page. It's not intuition. It's not connection. It's their fear dressing up as familiarity. They think if they can anticipate your steps, maybe they can contain your growth. They start showing up where you go, speaking on your behalf, predicting moves they were never invited to know. "I just knew you'd be here," they'll say, with a smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes. But the truth is, they're trying to map a spirit-led journey with flesh-born logic. And that never works. They're not following your life. They're chasing after the oil they didn't pay the price to carry. They want your fruit, but not your fire. And that's where discernment becomes your shield. Because while your walk might look calm on the surface, there's a spiritual current guiding it. Something holy, something sacred, something they'll never understand just by watching. Let them think they know you. Let them guess, project, and assume. Their curiosity is just confirmation. You carry something rare. And no matter how closely they try to mirror your path, what's been divinely assigned to you cannot be duplicated, delayed, or destroyed. Keep moving, quietly, boldly, faithfully. Because the chosen never follow the crowd. The crowd follows the chosen. It becomes clear in the way they finish sentences that were never started, the way they arrive at places without invitation, yet claim perfect timing. What seems like casual alignment is often deliberate mimicry, an attempt to orbit something they can't fully access. These assumptions, cloaked in admiration, reflect more than simple interest. They're a signal of silent obsession. Observations become predictions. Decisions are met with, "I figured you would," as if your inner compass were public property. Whether it's a shift in your environment or a new direction you haven't shared, the response arrives early, as though someone had read the pages before they were written. There's a fine line between appreciation and possession, and this behavior often treads too close. The desire to anticipate your steps is not rooted in malice, but in the gravitational pull of someone who lives with intention. Still, it becomes necessary to reclaim that space, to draw a firm line between visibility and intrusion. Not every movement requires explanation. Not every plan needs to be anticipated. Holding mystery becomes a form of protection. Let this dynamic affirm the weight your presence carries, but don't allow it to dilute your freedom. What you choose to reveal is yours alone. Let your path unfold on your terms, not to satisfy the assumptions of those watching, but to stay true to the unfolding truth within. What unsettles people the most is not perfection, but how someone continues to rise after everything tries to pull them under. There are those who fixate on the moments when momentum slows, not because they care, but because it comforts something fragile within them. They linger at the edges of your journey, not to support, but to scout for stumbles. Setbacks become their fuel. Each delay in your progress, a small victory for their doubt. They won't celebrate your milestones, but they will dissect your detours, masking envy behind shallow sympathy. This kind of attention hides behind hollow compliments and well-timed concern. It sounds like support, but feels like surveillance. A simple misstep is met with a rehearsed remark, an echo of doubt disguised as insight. "I figured something like that might happen," they say, cloaking their satisfaction with a sigh. These reactions aren't born from your misjudgments. They're born from your presence, making others question their own place. When elevation is witnessed up close, it either inspires or threatens, and those who can't match your evolution begin to root for your collapse, hoping that your fall will make their stagnation easier to bear. They may whisper your struggles when you're not around, turning lessons into entertainment, setbacks into stories to pass around like currency. It's never about the moment itself. It's about their need to feel less small by making you seem breakable. But their fixation says more about their limits than it ever could about yours. The deeper truth is this: only those with impact draw this kind of scrutiny. Shadows gather where light expands. Don't just watch, be part of the journey. Hit subscribe now and step into your purpose. The best is yet to come. Let them talk, let them assume, let them wait. Their obsession is only proof that something within you refuses to be ignored. Move forward with a fire that doesn't flinch, a silence that doesn't beg to be understood. Each time you rise again, you remind them of what they fear most. Not your failure, but your refusal to stay down. There are moments when unseen resistance intensifies, not through logic or direct confrontation, but through hidden attempts to disrupt what cannot be contained. When someone's essence carries a light too bright to dim, it often draws not just admiration, but desperation. Some, unable to match or silence that light by ordinary means, reach into the shadows. They resort to silent weapons, rituals masked by secrecy, hoping to fracture what they do not understand. These attempts are not about power. They are admissions of weakness, signs that your existence alone has disturbed a fragile balance in someone else. The effects may be subtle at first. A heavy atmosphere that clings for no clear reason, odd strings of misfortune that defy logic, emotional exhaustion that seems to appear out of nowhere. These aren't coincidences, they are symptoms of energy aimed with intent. Tools may be used, objects tampered with, energies channeled in silence, names whispered in corners. But beneath it all lies one truth: such efforts are not made against the average. They are reserved for those whose presence disrupts stagnation, whose direction threatens illusions, whose potential is too vast to be ignored. Yet no shadow can exist without light. And those who walk with deep-rooted purpose are not easily shaken by games of distortion. The key lies not in paranoia, but in preparation. Quiet rituals of renewal, centering practices that ground the spirit and clear the fog. Connection to one's internal compass, maintained through intention and elevated by the company of those who carry integrity. Reflection sharpens awareness, and awareness dismantles interference. The force behind these efforts loses its grip when it is met not with fear, but with clarity. Let each attack be confirmation. Something powerful moves through you. The more persistent the interference, the more undeniable your impact. Stand with quiet strength, knowing that these attempts only prove what they fear to say aloud, that your existence rattles foundations. Let your growth continue, not in spite of the interference, but because of it. And in doing so, you remind them that no force born of desperation can rewrite a path built on truth. Don't just watch, be part of the journey. Hit subscribe now and step into your purpose. The best is yet to come. Some paths are not chosen. They are inherited through spirit, etched into the soul long before the first step is taken. For those who carry such a path, the signs are unmistakable. Resistance becomes familiar. Attention, both pure and distorted, clings to every movement. But these aren't just reactions from others. They are quiet confirmations of something deeper at work. The patterns you've faced, the mimicry, the control disguised as advice, the discomfort you stir in silence, and the unseen forces that rise in opposition are not coincidences. They are markers of alignment with a calling that cannot be ignored. What looks like chaos from the outside is often the universe making room for your evolution. When others try to follow your rhythm or predict your direction, it's not because you're predictable, it's because they're trying to decode something sacred. When jealousy whispers through the actions of those once close, it's because your progress exposes what they've kept hidden. And when energies unfamiliar and dark attempt to cloud your clarity, it's because your presence unsettles what was never meant to last. Each pushback you've met is proof of the pull you carry, an unseen current drawing you towards something greater. But none of this defines you. What defines you is the way you move through it all, with quiet power, with an inner clarity that refuses to fracture, with an ability to rise not in defiance, but in devotion to your truth. That is where your influence lives, in how you continue, unshaken. Let each challenge sharpen your sense of purpose. Let the strange reactions you evoke serve as reminders. What you carry cannot be explained by ordinary terms. This journey doesn't require perfection. It calls for presence, endurance, and the courage to remain rooted even when the ground shifts. Keep the circle around you honest. Protect your energy with intention, and share only what strengthens the path forward. Let your life be the signal that it was always meant to be, not because you tried to prove your worth, but because you chose to walk in it fully. Keep going, not because they watch, but because you were never meant to stand still.